So we're going to start with 2-minute opening statements from each person. You will be candidates. If you want to look down there, you'll get a yellow card when it's 1 minute, a pink card when you've got 30 seconds left, and a red card when it's time to stop. And once you hit 2 minutes, I will may just cut you off after that time. So let's start with opening statements. We're going to draw a name here, and we'll start with this person, and then we'll go down the line, and then loop back around to the beginning of the table. And our first opening statement will be from Nina Fontana.
Good evening. My name is Nina Fontana, and I was just asked tonight, why am I running for the school board? When I think about it, I've always been pretty much of a problem solver, and I try to find solutions for things that I see need fixing, and I guess that's why I'm looking at the school board right now. I've lived in DeKalb for 23 years, and I taught at Huntley Middle School, 7th grade language arts, for 16 years. And I thought it was time for me to put my money where my mouth was and run for school board and see things from the other side of the table. And maybe that's a problem, maybe there's no problem, but I just thought it would be something good to do to give back to this wonderful community. When I was teaching, I brought everything that was in me with me into the classroom. My educational, moral, cultural background, whether I was teaching a class, looking at an aha moment, or dealing with parents or other teachers or administrators. I have beliefs, and those beliefs have served me for all these years, and I don't expect they're going to change. I believe that all children can learn. Not in the same way, not at the same time, but they can. I believe that all children want to learn. I believe that we help them learn by offering them the very best in our schools, in our curriculum, our textbooks, because children learn at least as much from the people around them as they do from any book at all. I believe that if we have high expectations for our students, they will give us high results, and that can only help every one of us in the community and in this school. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Tom.
Good evening, and thank all of you for coming out tonight. My name is Tom Mattia. My wife and I, Karen, moved to DeKalb in 1986. We have 5 children. 4 of my children have graduated from DeKalb High School, and my son will be a senior next year. My work experience, I spent 18 years working for DeKalb Genetics. I worked in various sales, marketing, and business management positions. I spent 2 years with Monsanto, and for the last 11 years, I have worked for a firm, a family holdings firm in Sycamore called ZMA's Holdings, and for them, I do community development work and philanthropy work. My reasons for running, I believe we have really good schools here in DeKalb, but I think they can be better. And I think it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility as board members, administrators, teachers, and parents to work together to make that happen for our community. Our schools are our most important asset that we have in Malta, DeKalb, and Cortland. How can we make them better? We have to have a huge focus on improving every student's performance. How do we do that? We can do that through making sure that we have the right technology to help our kids learn the way they are learning today, to make sure our curriculum is correct. We need to look at that very thoroughly. And the last thing is communication. I really believe that communication is the key, from teacher to student and to parent, and to also get the community involved. Financial management is going to be a key over the next few years as we see dwindling budgets at the state level and the local level. I think we're going to have to look at things very, very carefully. We're going to have to establish priorities, and we're going to need the community's help to establish those priorities. And that's, again, where the last point comes in, and that is using community engagement. We need to get businesses involved. We need to utilize the resources at Kishwaukee College in Northern Illinois. Again, my name is Tom Mattia, and I would appreciate your vote on April 5th.
Thank you, Tom. Jim.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Mitchell. I'm running for 3rd term on the school board. That's a couple of my learning colleagues are here tonight as well. I believe experience says it all. while everyone at this table has experiences of their own, and has their experiences, you know, as a teacher, as a philanthropist, as agricultural business owner, as all these things, I believe the experience that I've received over the last 8 years makes me the best candidate. It makes me the best person for the job. Now, if you don't want me to do the job, you tell me. That's fine. It's a hard job. And the next couple of years are going to be very, very difficult. We are facing some serious numbers, folks, and I wish we weren't. I wish I could tell you that it wasn't that bad. But it's not that bad. It could be worse. It could be a lot worse. I know a lot of districts that are in a lot worse shape than we are. But we're in really great shape. We're in great shape financially. We're in great shape physically. We're doing very, very well. We're about to open up a brand new high school. We just opened up a brand new elementary school. And we have plenty of time and plenty of money to get things done. To get things done that we need to get done. Now, do we need more money? Of course we do. Would we like more money? Of course we would. Where are we going to get it from? Well, as I suggested prior to this meeting in the Egyptian, I suggested that we run what's called a referendum. It's called an operational referendum. Not many people like to hear that. It's either going to be an operational referendum or it's going to be a piece of the sales tax here in DeKalb. Something like that. We need to find a way to do so. And I'm all about exploring these options, but it takes experience to do so. So, again, my name is James Mitchell. I asked for your vote on I think it's April 5th. It's April 5th, it's Tuesday of next week. And enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Tia.
Good evening. My name is Tia Robinson. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to come before you this evening. I've lived in DeKalb now for a little over 24 years, where I've raised my 3 children who all attended DeKalb schools. I currently have a daughter who currently attends DeKalb schools as a 7th grader at Huntley Middle School. I am a graduate of Kishwaukee College. I'm a graduate of NIU, and I'm also a graduate of National Louis University, where I had the opportunity to complete my MBA as well as my Master's in Management and Leadership Development. And I'm currently will be graduating this year from NIU with my doctorate degree in counseling and adult education. I share that with you tonight because I believe that one of the core values that I possess is that I'm naturally an educator. I'm naturally an educator because as a profession, I drive to educate. I've held professor positions at NIU, at Elmhurst College, at City Colleges of Chicago, as well as at Kishwaukee College. And I'm currently employed in my full-time profession as an academic dean at Northwestern College. I've had the opportunity now to serve on the school board for 2 terms, and I'm seeking the opportunity to serve for another term because I would like to continue focusing on providing you with the service that I provided in the last 8 years. I'm looking for the opportunity to focus on providing the community and serving the community and the taxpayers, as well as the students, as well as the parents, while ensuring that we continue to provide our students with a quality education by offering solid academic programs, professional development to our teachers, various diversity programs, looking to improve and increase parental involvement, and looking for other ways, not only for fiscal responsibility, but to also close our achievement gap. So I come to you this evening once again asking for the opportunity to serve you once again for a 3rd term. And my name is Tia Robinson.
Thank you, Tia. Holly.
Good evening. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this event and to the beautiful Egyptian Theater for hosting. My name is Holly Wallace and I am running for school board. And I would like to begin by talking about my qualifications for the role of school board member. While I know it's not required criteria to sit on a school board, my most important accomplishment is my family. I have 3 wonderful children. One is a graduate of 428, and the other 2 still attend school here in DeKalb. Through my children, I became involved in the schools. I started as a room mom. I held the office of president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer on the PTA of 3 different schools. I held leadership roles in the planning of many school activities, and I have served on almost every school district committee: citizens advisory, curriculum, diversity, insurance, finance advisory, facilities planning, and the DeKalb Education Foundation. I even attended school board meetings for over 2 years before I even decided to run for school board. I have a bachelor's degree in education, and I currently work at NIU for a non-for-profit association that provides accreditation and professional development to school district business offices on school finance and school law. I love my job because it allows me to combine my passion for education with my interest in school business management. I believe the most important attribute I will bring to the school board table is thoughtful consideration. Thoughtful consideration for the matters at hand, thoughtful consideration for my fellow board members, thoughtful consideration for the staff and for the taxpayers, but most importantly, thoughtful consideration for the children we are entrusted to educate. Please vote for me, Holly Wallace, for school board on April 5th. Jim, thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Tracy.
Hey, good evening. I too would like to thank the Chamber and the Egyptian Theater for allowing us to be here this evening. I attended movies in this theater in the mid-'70s and it looks better now than it did then, so it's great facility. I grew up in DeKalb. I attended DeKalb schools. I was one of the last graduating classes out of the Northern Illinois University Laboratory School, for those of you that remember that facility. I attended DeKalb High School and graduated from there in 1978. I attended college at Northern Illinois University and the University of Wyoming, and then started an early career as a young farmer. I've been involved in agriculture in some capacity for the last 30 years. For the last 15 years, I served as a director of a large agribusiness and more recently as an owner. And it's through those experiences that I learned how to do things like complex debt and equity financings, run efficient and thorough due diligence processes, efficient legal processes, and corporate acquisitions. It's that experience that I would like to bring to the school board. I agree that we're going to see many tough times ahead financially. I think that it's going to take some real thorough skills in finances to make sure that we have the ability to offer children coming up through our system the same opportunities of those that are currently in the system. I want to focus on community involvement. I want to establish a program much like Sycamore already has in place, the Partners in Education program, which allows people, professionals of all varying backgrounds to participate in the education of our children. And I'd also like to work on the perception of our current school district. I think that some of the issues and some of the things you hear are warranted, but not all of them. Not all of them. And I think through thorough open communication with the community, we can immediately start to improve the perception of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Cohen.
I think it's wonderful the Chamber, WLBK, the Egyptian, and the Daily Chronicle took the time to come out tonight and put this event on. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out. An educated voter is important for the success of our community, and it's great to have you here. A little bit about myself. First and foremost, I'm a father of 2 children, which I'm proud to say are in the front row here, Hank and Maddie. Thanks, guys. And I'm also the husband of a wife, or husband of a high school teacher at DeKalb High School. My education, I went through Little John Elementary School, Clinton Rosette, and graduated from DeKalb High School here. After graduation, I went into the military and served in the United States Army for 3 years, where I was a U.S. paratrooper. When I returned, I went to Kishwaukee College and pursued my Associate of Arts. About a semester and a half in, I got a Western Union mailgram that asked me to return back to active duty to support in Operation Desert Storm and Desert Shield. And I say that because it's a very proud moment of mine to be able to respond to your country's call. After that stint, I went back to Kishwaukee College, finished my associate's degree, and then transferred to NIU and received my bachelor's degree from there. I'm a big believer in community service, going back from the days when I was a Boy Scout here in the community where I earned the rank of Eagle Scout to the last 5-10 years where I've served the community in various boards and committees, nonprofits like the Ben Gordon Center or the DeKalb County Keys Initiative. I've been on business organizations like the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce and the DeKalb County Economic Development Corporation. And then I've also had the privilege to serve for the City of DeKalb on the Citizens Community Enhancement Commission and the Facilities Planning Committee for the DeKalb School District. I'm a business owner of TBC Net, which is a technology-based company, and DeKalb Fiber Optic, which is a fiber optic infrastructure company. I'm proud to serve the community. I think my history here and my involvement gives me broad range of understanding of the residents of the community, and I think that understanding, I'll be able to represent your interests on the school board if elected. Once again, my name is Cohen Barnes, and please vote for me on April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Cohen. And Bernie.
I'm Bernie Yang. I'm from DeKalb. My wife and I have 2 boys, one in 1st grade and one in 2nd grade at Lincoln School. I went to DeKalb for high school, went to Kishwaukee College, and then went on to Illinois State University. When I came back, I've either been a plant manager or a salesman for Conserve FS, formerly Northern FS, for the last 13 or 14 years, depending on which month you got employed in. I ran for school board simply because I was asked, and because now I feel that it's time for me to give back to the community that I'm from and that I've been receiving stuff from since I was in school. I would appreciate your vote on April 5th.
Thank you, Bernie. All right, we now have a series of 3 questions that I will read out loud, and then we're going to draw the name of who will start. This time, though, we will draw the name of each subsequent person till we've gotten through all 7 candidates. All right, and our first question is as follows. I'll read it now, and if you need me to read it again when it's your turn, please let me know, since there are a lot of us. The high school has not made adequate yearly progress for several years under the No Child Left Behind legislation and is under a restructuring plan. Is the restructuring plan sufficient to cause the school to meet AYP? What changes need to be made in order to improve the performance of the high school? And the first person to answer will be Tom Mattia.
Excuse me. Check my hearing here. Average yearly progress is obviously something that we see in the newspaper, and it's very troubling, I think, to all of us that we do not achieve that level. I believe that there's multiple ways that we need to go about this. Obviously, the school is accountable in what we're teaching and the plan that we're putting out. I think we also need to really reach out to our parents. I think we can say the teachers in the schools have to do this, but we also have to put the responsibility not only on the students, but on their parents to make sure the kids are doing their work. And, you know, that's, I guess, the way I've raised my kids. When they don't get the work done, I think it's my responsibility to help them. And I think we need to help educate the parents that they need to take an active role in this. And I think we also need to make sure that we get other businesses involved, some of the local employers, to emphasize to our students the importance of doing the basic things right and how important it is to get them getting a job. Some kids maybe don't understand the importance of why we have to reach these certain standards. I'm not sure I agree with all the politics of average, yearly progress, but that's what we have, and that's what we're judged upon. And we need to make sure that we not only raise the lower scores, we need to raise the highest scores. And I really think we need to work hard at using technology, at looking at our curriculum, and making sure that we continue to do this.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. The next person to answer will be Holly Wallace.
Our high school hasn't made AYP in certain areas, and it is a problem that is across not only our state, but across the United States as we get closer to the end of the No Child Left Behind plan, where 100% of our children are supposed to be at certain standards. The high school has developed a restructuring plan. I attended the board meeting that it was presented at. It has some very interesting aspects to it, and I think that the plans that we're going to be putting into place next year include a freshman academy. They include some enrichment courses. I think one of the best ways of trying to enrich our programs is also with the help of NIU. They've been very generous to offer something called Star Tutoring after school, where NIU students come and they make themselves available to students who need help in almost every subject. Also, our wonderful staff at the high school who have worked hard on this restructuring plan and care very much about bringing up those test scores. Many of them offer before school, after school, during lunch time when students can come in and get extra help. I think that we need to have the expectation for all of our children that not only are we judging them by a test, because at the end of the day, AYP is judged by the ISAT test scores that are given just once a year, but we need to make the expectation that they're achieving this level all year round in all their classes, and not only graduate, but graduate and learn. And to do that, I think that we need to continue to work towards the goals that we've set up as a school board with the restructuring plan that's in place. We need to constantly be checking those goals to make sure that they're working. We need to have measurable means to make sure that we're staying within the guidelines that we need to meet those goals. And I really think that it's about working together. I agree with Tom that bringing parents in is a wonderful attribute, and I think our students can do it.
Thank you, Holly. The next person to answer will be Nina Fontana.
Well, I think that Tom and Holly hit a lot of the major points. Meeting adequate yearly progress is a result of the No Child Left Behind Act, and we may not like it, but it is here, and it says that by 2014, all of our students will meet or exceed the requirements, and that's a hard thing to accomplish. That doesn't mean that we can't do it, doesn't mean that we aren't working toward it. We are. The restructuring with the Freshman Academy, every student taking algebra, these are all part and parcel of the restructuring to accomplish the goal of adequate yearly progress. In addition to that, in the SOAR program through Northern, there are teachers who do tutoring every day of the week. It's available to everyone who is able to be part of that. Also, I had a note written down now, I forgot it. I think that one thing that we need to work on also is to bolster the schools that feed into the high school. Actually, of course, the different schools do well. Some are meeting adequate yearly progress, some are not in different areas. But obviously, the students don't just come to us fully grown at the high school. They're coming through our elementary schools and through our 2 middle schools. We have many people doing wonderful, wonderful jobs teaching them in those schools, but it's something that we need to look at. Is there a step that we can take that would be an intermediate step to prepare them better for when they get to the high school? Those are all things that need to be looked at, and the board needs to be guiding that process.
Thank you, Nina. Next to answer will be Bernie Ng.
I would love to see AYP be gone. What a horrible way to judge students based on one test. I think Nina said in her opening that every student can learn, and I believe that. They all just learn at different rates and times. You can't make everyone learn the same. Effort has to be part of it, and I don't think it can be changed because we can't change the rules, but we need to help the students along that need more help, if that's tutoring or extra help at home, but I do believe it starts at home too.
Thank you, Bernie. Next to answer will be Tia Robinson.
One more time for me.
Of course. The high school has not made adequate yearly progress for several years under the No Child Left Behind legislation and is under a restructuring plan. Is the restructuring plan sufficient to cause the school to meet AYP? What changes need to be made in order to improve the performance of the high school?
Thank you. In response to the first part of the question, whether or not the restructuring plan is sufficient in order to allow students to, in order to allow the school to meet AYP, my response to that would be yes. I've had the opportunity to see the restructuring plan, to read the restructuring plan, to hear from the team of DeKalb High School teachers led by the leadership that actually worked many hours with a great deal of passion in order to put the plan together based on the criteria and the guidelines that was provided by the state. So for that part, I would say yes, I do believe that it is a sufficient plan, and that upon its implementation, that our students will begin to see success in this particular area. What kind of things and what kind of changes? I think that just as I think about some of the components of the plan that popped into my mind, I think that increasing the professional development of our teachers and working closer with our teachers to make sure that our teachers have a comfort level in studying and delivering their craft is important, as well as the increasing the intensity of our reading literacy and our math programs to provide those students that's not making adequate year progress with more support, implementation of the Freshman Academy, as well as other enrichment programs, increasing tutoring, increasing parental involvement, developing an assessment plan that continues to assess the progress on a regular basis, and putting some accountability measures in place in terms of identifying how we're going to make sure as a board that the plan is also implemented and that there's a level of accountability that's being looked at as it's related to data-driven decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. Next to answer will be Cohen Barnes.
There is a plan in place, as you've heard many mention here. A restructuring plan has been developed. A new superintendent has been hired. There's a new principal at the high school, new administration. A lot of changes in the district have happened over the last 3 to 5 years. Those changes take time for those plans to get implemented, people to understand them, people to get on board for the change to actually take effect. Does that mean that you just blindly let the plan go forward? By no means, no. It should be monitored, it should be looked at, and it should be studied by the board, working as a team, the 7 members, with administration, with faculty, and with the teachers to make sure that we can increase AYP. Beautiful thing about a board, there's 7 people that are on it. A lot of things can happen, and a lot of those board members can bring different aspects or different ideas that I think could help increase student achievement. Ultimately, I look at a lot of ways when about 3-4 years ago, the DeKalb County Keys Initiative did a survey of the students, and 2 of the lowest scores out there were our youth don't feel valued by the community, and they don't think they bring value to the community. 75% of our students felt that way. So I think it's important that we figure out ways to bring pride to our kids. I think one of the ways is what we've already done. We passed a referendum. We showed them that we're gonna, this community is committed to give them the facilities that they need to have the best academic experience possible. Some of you I said it to before, I can sing the Little John Elementary School fight song. What that means is when I went through that school meant so much to me that I could retain things like that. That experience that I had then could have led to the experience to get my Eagle Scout, led to the experience to serve my country, led to the experience that puts me before you here tonight. I think pride breeds excellence. And right now, I think with the schools, I think with the hospital, the downtown revitalization plan, I think there's a lot of pride in our community. I think the staff has pride. I think the students have pride. And I think with that, we're going to have AYP increase year after year. Thank you.
Thank you, Cohen. Next to answer will be Tracy Williams.
Well, when I decided to run for the school board, the first thing I did was start calling some of the principals and administrators in town and made appointments with them to spend some time with them and understand a little better some of the things like AYP and some of the various programs that have been put into place to address it. I did not get to all of the principals yet, but I will. But what I was impressed with was Tom Muller at the high school. And we had a pretty candid discussion about where in the chain do we seem to be disconnecting. We don't see the elementary schools struggling to reach AYP like they are at the high school level. Why is that? We know that every teacher out there in the elementary schools are working extremely hard to get those kids to the appropriate reading level, grade levels that's measured by ISAT. But why is it then when they get to be a freshman in high school that many of them are not reading at the grade appropriate level? I know that the school district has implemented a new data collection system that will allow a more real-time collection of data and the progress of these students. It's a great first step. I know that Tom Muller and his intervention program at the high school is trying to be very proactive to make sure that all kids are progressing at their optimum rate. And I think that we do have some initial steps in place that will be very positive long term. But we do have to stay diligent and measure that progress as close to real time as we can. Each year, the AYP is to increase 7.5%. It's going to be harder and harder to hit. But I think with the real-time collection of data, constant measuring, and the intervention programs, I think that we're going to come pretty close to doing that. And I do believe they have good people involved.
Thank you, Tracy. And James Mitchell is next.
No, last but certainly not least. Well, AYP. This is the big elephant in the room. AYP is not so near and dear to my heart. I am a big proponent of repealing No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind. I don't believe in unfunded mandates. I believe the government, the federal government gave us this mandate and then said, here, go ahead, you have to do it now. Everybody has to do this. Everybody in the United States has to be like this, and that's what it is. And this is something that came from the Bush administration. They said this is what it has to be. You get in there, though, and you find that real people know, and real teachers know, and real administrators know, and even we on the board know that there are some children that just don't learn the same way everybody else does. There are some children that are not destined for college. There are some children that just aren't going to do it, aren't going to make it. They're going to try, and some will make it and some won't, unfortunately. But AYP, let's get back to AYP. I think AYP is a waste of money, a waste of time, and a waste of our resources, our precious resources. I would like to see No Child Left Behind repealed. I'd like to see AYP thrown out the window and studied and done properly. Get the right people in there to do it. Don't just throw some people in that think they know what they're doing. Get real people in the classroom that understand what they're doing. We cannot continue to spend money this way. We cannot continue to educate our children this way. It's unbelievable to me that we still continue to do this. We still believe that every child has this same ability to learn. Not every child learns the same way. We have to realize that. We realize that, I think, at the local level, but the federal and the state level, they don't care about that. All they care about is statistics and their numbers and who's passing what kind of test. So if it's up to me, get rid of it. I don't think it's adequate enough for what we're doing at the high school. I think the high school's got a great plan, but you know what? Let's see how it works before I say yes or no on that one. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. That is the end of our first question. So one down. We do have 3 questions that we're going to ask. We're going to take a short break, reassess our time. If we do have enough time left, we'll ask a potential 4th and 5th question. No matter what, we will have closing statements from each of the candidates. So our second question. The financial crisis at the state, along with tax caps at the local level, have caused the school district to make significant cuts in the last 3 years. The preliminary budget for the 2011-2012 reflects a $1.4 million deficit. What can the school district do to balance the budget? Should the school district operate under a balanced budget? Why? And first to answer the question will be Cohen Barnes.
As a small business owner, balancing the budget is important. Over the years, as I worked in my business, I've been on the other side of things. I've been into the red. I've made the decision that I thought it was worthwhile practice to do at the time. And I learned the difficulties that are associated with that, the constraints, the stress. It's a side that I prefer to always be on the black side. To me, a balanced budget is absolutely critical. We have to make sure that we don't continually go into debt. We're faced with a lot of challenges right now. Money is short, whether it's money coming in locally, from the state, from the federal government. Every time you look around, everyone has less, and we all have to do more with less. And you're faced with tough challenges, tough decisions. What are you going to do? For me, a balanced budget is a priority of mine. I want to make sure that the school never has red when the budget gets put before them and passed. They need to get creative. They need to make some tough decisions. But at the most important thing is the individual student student achievement has to be the priority number one, the thing that you consider every time you make a decision. To balance a budget, you can look at it, you can go through it. There's a lot of times where maybe you can choose it's academics that get sacrificed. Maybe it's athletics. Maybe it's the music department. For me, I believe a well-rounded education is important to students. For me, I try and keep everything I possibly could, but I am not scared to make a hard decision when it comes down to it to keep our budget balanced. We have the fortune of there's a $21 million grant that's been put before us. Maybe that's something we can do to overcome that shortfall of the $1.4 million. It's also my understanding that the state could possibly raise the amount that they're given per student, which would close that particular gap. Classroom sizes have gotten larger. To me, as a parent, as a resident, that's something I'm not a fan of, but I understand it, and I agree that a balanced budget is a priority of the school district.
Thank you, Cohen. Next to answer will be Nina Fontana.
Well, the first part of that is pretty easy. Should we balance the budget? Absolutely. Excuse me, we all balance our budgets at home, more or less, and I think it's something that the school district just needs to do. If it's true that we learn from example, we haven't had very good examples. The federal government doesn't balance their budget, the state doesn't balance their budget, but that doesn't mean that we can't and that we shouldn't. I believe that we should. I think that the question, of course, is how do you balance it? And I'm open to a lot of ideas. I'd like to hear some things. I was talking with some people before we began the forum, and I was talking about corporate sponsorship. Why not? Coca-Cola did a corporate sponsorship of a beautiful high school in Florida, and all they asked is that they put in their products in the school. I don't see a problem with that. I wouldn't mind seeing an ad for Nestle's or for Target on the side of our school buses. The point is that I think in order to balance the budget and not have to have massive layoffs and have our class sizes go up higher than 35, which already is atrocious, I think that we need to be open to a lot of ideas. We need to see what's available. We need to go back to getting more grant funding. I know that we've done that. I know we still do that, but we need to pursue that a little bit more. That's what I would see. I would like to hear a lot of ideas. I would like to see members of the community, many of you who are right here, who have these good ideas, join the committees that would advise the board. I know we spoke about this previously with Dr. Briscoe, and it's really hard, understandably, getting community members to be on an advisory committee. I understand that, but we need to do that. You're here, you're interested. We need to talk it up among ourselves and among our neighbors and get people who have the wherewithal, people who have the information onto these committees so that they can advise the board.
Thank you, Nina. Next to answer will be James Mitchell.
Could you read the question one more time, please? Okay.
Financial crisis at the state, along with tax caps at the local level, have caused the school district to make significant cuts in the last 3 years. The preliminary budget for the 2011-2012 reflects a $1.4 million deficit. What can the school district do to balance the budget? Should the school district operate under a balanced budget? Why?
Well, I'll go ahead and say it. It is policy in our district to run a balanced budget. That comes from the school code and whatnot, and we developed that policy years ago. When I first started on the board, I didn't really know much about a balanced budget, didn't really understand much about why it's so important. But over the years, I've learned from some great people that we have hired over time, and some fellow board members that have taught me why it's so important. And it is imperative that we do it the right way. Now, how do we balance out this year $1.4 million? That's going to be tough. I've heard people say line-by-line item on the budget themselves. We've done line-by-line item many years ago, and we've done it almost every year. And we have instructed the administration to do line-by-line if that's what you have to do. But we tell the administration, go back, find the money somewhere. We told them that at the last board meeting. We said, the money's there, go find it somewhere. We're not going to pass a deficit, period. We're not going to do it. Sometimes, though, you have to step back and take a real comprehensive look at what you've got, where your meat's at, and we'll call it the meat and potatoes, where the meat and potatoes are. Well, the meat and potatoes, some people would say is in our extracurricular program. And then other people would say it's in our class size already. There's only really three ways to cut money like this. You either cut extracurricular, you raise your class size, or you cut your people. You cut your staff. Now, we've already cut the staff. We've cut the staff to the bone pretty much. And a lot of what folks don't understand is when we cut people a couple weeks ago, a lot of those people will retain their jobs. We'll have to come back because we need them, because the students are still going to be there. We just have to be able to cut them out of the budget for a while, and we'll add them back in. That's just the way it's going to be. Once we get our GSA numbers, we'll know for sure what we're doing. It's that little bit, though, that extra push, that $1.4 million that we still have to find somewhere. And we have instructed, this current board has instructed the administration to go and find the $1.4 million. I believe they can do it. I just don't think they want to.
Thank you, Jim. Next to answer is Bernie Ng.
I have to follow a budget at work. I have to follow a budget at home. Everyone needs to follow a budget, and a balanced budget is very important. But before I say how we can save money, I'd need to see where we spend all the money, and I think that's important. Where we spend the money, as everybody seems to care, is on the kids. And in order to have kids in schools, we have to spend it on the schools too. So, a balanced budget, very important. Where we can find the money, I don't know yet.
Thank you, Bernie. Next to answer will be Tracy Williams.
Well, the school district currently manages a $60 to $65 million budget. So to find a $1.4 million shortfall is roughly 2 to 3%. For people like myself, Tom, that have managed larger budgets in larger corporations, finding 2% is not intimidating to me. The only way you can do it is to do the appropriate due diligence. And you do go in line item by line item. And you do take a look at every expenditure in the district. And if the board gets involved, the board drives that process. We get the community involved. When we talk about larger community involvement in the Citizens Financial Advisory Committee, you don't run an ad in the paper and hope that people show up. You go get some of the talent we have in this town between the University of Kishwaukee and others, professionals in this town, business owners that would like to help in this process. And then you can communicate your findings appropriately and let the community know how you arrived at those decisions. I have reached out to 4 different individuals who are 2 are financial professionals and 2 are business owners and independent businessmen, and asked them, if I were to be elected, would you be willing to sit on a board with me, or a committee, excuse me, and help me go through this budget? To the man, they've all said yes. I think that this community needs a balanced budget, and the board needs to communicate properly with the community how they got to that budget and do it objectively and thoroughly, and we will be able to go forward without deep, drastic reductions in school performance and programs.
Thank you, Tracy. Next to answer will be Tia Robinson.
Thank you. Should the district operate under a balanced budget? Our answer to that is yes. Primarily because the district has a policy that says that we would not deficit spend, and that we are expected and committed to delivering a balanced budget. I've had the opportunity to serve on this board for 8 years that has actually accomplished that task, and we've accomplished the task of doing that with looking at deficits that was far greater than $1.4 million. Some of the things that come to mind is the board's ability to continue to work collaboratively with the superintendent and with his administration to really dissect the budget line by line in order to come up with areas that we can cut while making sure that we continue to maintain programs and focusing on what's best for our children. Looking very closely at the various audits, using that as a measure to kind of identify where cost savings can occur, where spending may have increased, continuing to be very transparent with the community, getting community feedback in some of those areas are also very important. My primary position has not changed today, just as it hasn't in the last 8 years, is that it's very important that we deliver a balanced budget and that we do not pass or work under a deficit budget or deficit spend.
Thank you, Tia. Next to answer will be Holly Wallace.
Yes, it's very true. Our state is in a financial crisis at this time. Our state is about $13 billion in deficit. And they're not paying their schools. They're not paying us. And that becomes very difficult because as a school district, as we plan a budget, we do plan on some of that money coming in. Now, not only do we have to worry about balancing a budget, but we also have to worry about providing programs such as pre-K, transportation, that in the past have been funded by the state, but the state's not paying their bills. The school district has many, many mandates that we're required to do, and many of these are unfunded. As of this time this year, we should have be receiving our third payment for mandated categoricals. We received 4 during the year. We have not received a single payment from the state this year. That means that we are spending our own money in our fund balances to keep the district going, to keep those programs going. Another factor that has led to this deficit this year is we are under tax caps. The only way that the school district can get new income is from a formula that's based on CPI, which was almost 0 last year, and new construction, which I'm sure most of you realize was not really strong last year either. This added up to bring very little new income to the school district. I think that we need to be constantly vigilant on the budget. As Tia and Jim said, this school board does have a policy that requires a balanced budget, and we have always had a balanced budget for the budget that we provide in September. But that budget is always fluid. It's always moving. Last year, right before we approved the budget, they cut our transportation even more, and we had to come up with money to run that. When you run a budget that's a service industry, and that's truly what we are providing a service. We have a budget that is made up of 80 to 85% of salaries and benefits. That leaves very, very little fat to trim away. And I think this board just needs to look at lots of options with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. And last but not least is Tom Mattia.
Thank you. Not going through the budget process at the school, I think it would be imperative that initially, yes, you do give the administration the target that they need to achieve. But I would propose that the new board sit down and face-to-face go through each school budget line by line and make sure those budgets can be justified. That would be a very time-consuming process, but I think it would be necessary, not just for my education, but for the community's education. We need to establish what the priorities are, because there are going to be cuts this year, and there's going to be more cuts in the years to come if this state is going to deal with its budget issue. I think after you do as much cutting as you possibly can, we need to think a little bit out of the box. I think we maybe need to look at possibly co-opting some programs. We have a big high school. Maybe we can co-opt some of our programs with some of the other programs with some of the neighboring school districts. I think they have to absorb the same cost. I think times are coming now where we really have to look at how districts can work together, cross the lines on certain things to save dollars. I think we have to put our neighborhood differences aside and sometimes find if there's a more efficient way to do things. That might mean staff positions are going to be eliminated, but maybe we don't need all those staff positions if we do combine some of our resources. I think we just got to look at some different solutions.
Thank you, Tom. And that is the end of question 2. Third question. The new high school is built and the district has received approximately $21 million in additional grant money. As a new board member, what are 2 primary priorities that you believe should be addressed with these funds? And the first to answer will be James Mitchell.
Did that say new board member?
You did say it in the question.
Oh, well, then I don't have to answer that. Thanks. All right. $21 million. Boy, I've been asked this question more times than I care to count. And I think the last time someone asked me, I said, save it. Put it away for a rainy day. I think I said this last night, actually, at Oakcrest. Put it away. Do something with it at a later time. I've heard people say they want to get committees together. That's not a bad idea. I've heard people say they want to get the administration together. That's also not a bad idea. There's lots of ideas out there. We just can't go full force and wanting to spend it on everything that we think we can spend it on, because we can't. Number one, we're restricted by what we can spend this money on. This money was given to us because we were at a critical time. Well, not a critical time. We were just in the right time at the right place. When we were building our high school, they came to us and they said, hey, you qualify for this grant, $21 million worth. So, and we're like, okay, for real? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, okay, so we got it, and now we've got it, $19 million of it in the bank. And what do? Well, we let it sit there. We let it gain some time, and we figure it out. If it was me personally, I know how these buildings are. I know how the rest of the buildings are in this district, not the new buildings. The last 3 buildings we built in this district are very good, very fine buildings. The new high school, Cortland, and Brooks are very great schools, structurally. Now, the rest of our schools are in some disrepair. If it was up to me personally, I would say yes. Start going in there and just start replacing things that need to be replaced in the schools. Start working on the infrastructure of our district. And that's pretty much where I would go with it, because we talked about running another $110 million referendum, but that's not going to happen for a while. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know when would be a good time to ever make that happen. But the other 110 was for the rest of our schools to be put back together, to be fixed, because we've been neglecting them for many years. Now, again, taking the $21 million and putting it into our schools is not a lot, but it's at least a start. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Next to answer will be Tom Matea.
I think it's great that we got the $21 million, and kudos to the administration staff for following through on this. I believe there's 3 things, really, that the funds should be used for. I think we need to bring equity to all of our schools. We do have some nice new schools. We have some schools that probably need some rehab, but we need to make sure it makes economical sense and it really pays dividends for our taxpayers. Secondly, we need to make sure we have equity in our academic tools at all of our schools. And the third thing is, I think we owe some money back to you. I think the money was given to us based on the $110 million referendum. And I do think we have to look at using a portion of this to pay down some of our bonds. So I think we need to bring those options to the community. I think we need to look at the return we can get on the money that we keep. But then I also think we need to weigh the value that it will bring to the taxpayers over the length of these bonds.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Next to answer will be Cohen Barnes.
It's my understanding it's not quite clear what we can do with the $21 million. So a lot of us are awaiting clarification from the state to know what we can actually do with the money, which will steer the conversation in that proper direction. My gut, I'd love to use it to reduce our debt. My gut, I'd love to bring equity to the schools. I believe every kid, whether they go to Little John Elementary School or whether they go to Brooks Elementary School, should have the same options available to them, the same type of facility, age dependent. I would love to bring that kind of equity, and as someone mentioned, that was what the second referendum was going to be for, was to bring equity to our schools. Operations, there's a $1.4 million at this time projected deficit that might be proposed to the board. To use that money towards operations, to shore that $1.4 million up without increasing tax or without increasing class size, I think would be fantastic. ultimately what's exciting about this is 7 people are going to get together and they're going to debate with administration over the best use for it. Those 7 people are going to reach out to the community to get community input, not just from experts in our community, but also from the average citizen, what they think we should do with the money. What is the priority? There is a financial aspect to it, a financial priority that makes absolute sense, but then there's also a priority of the residents of this community that value certain things, and they'd want to use the money for that. So that 21 million, I hope I'm a part of that discussion. I'd love to be a part of it. I think it's exciting that the board and the community has that 21 million to be able to decide what to do with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Cohen. Next to answer will be Tia Robinson.
I think that first of all, it's very important to make sure that we understand the guidelines and the limitations that will be wrapped around, or that may be wrapped around how the money is used. And from there, spend time planning very strategically in order to make sure that we use the money in such a way so that it will have a really good impact and a benefit to the district and to the community. The question asks for just a couple of areas of focus, and so my areas of focus would be to look at developing a number of or a couple of committees that will involve the community and parents to look at how we can use the money, focusing on a couple of areas that pop into my mind, such as professional development of teachers, improving academic programs and curriculum, developing diversity programs, as well as areas of looking to see how we can pay down our bonds and reduce our debt. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. Next to answer will be Holly Wallace.
It's hard to go after Tia. Can I just say what she said? The school district applied for this grant in 2003 based on the first referendum that was run. And who would think that almost 10 years later, the state actually bonded the money and was able to go down that list to see who would qualify to get the money. So in other words, we're very, very lucky. There were many school districts on that 2003 list, and the only way you could qualify to get the money was if you had a plan and you were currently working on it. So a lot of school districts that had applied for the money had already funded projects, and they were exempt from it. So while we're very lucky to have it, I think that we need to take a lot of time and plan very carefully how we would like to use this money. I think there are a lot of needs in the district. I would be in favor of a community committee that would discuss many options, look at the financial implications of all of these, and I would agree with Tia, professional development, teaching and learning, obviously abate our debt. We have older buildings in the district. I think they need to be looked at also. But I think that the most important thing is that we get the clarification on the guidelines before we make any decisions, because we have not received those yet. So once those are set up, I think that we need to start the process of planning what to do with the money. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Next to answer will be Bernie Ng.
I would like to see 2 lists. The first list is a list of rules and what we can spend the money on. And the second list would be a list made up of taxpayers, administrators, teachers, and students, and see what they would like to spend the money on. Popular vote. We're going to vote for school board. If everybody wants to pay down debt with the $21 million, then we need to pay it down. If we want it put into schools, then it needs to go to the school, into schools and structure. I'd like to see it all done by a committee, but that's why the team is going to decide.
Thank you, Bernie. Next to answer will be Tracy Williams.
Well, we don't have to do anything with it in the next 30 days or 60 days. We have time to run the process. And I have some instincts of what I think probably we'll see the bulk of these funds go to. But we haven't run the process yet. And in order to do that, in order to really know how to maximize the return for the taxpayers and the students in this district, we have to go in with an objective and thorough process that is openly communicated to all of you. And once that process has been run, we'll be able to show you what decisions have been made based on the best returns to this district and its taxpayers. That may come in the form of debt reduction. It may come in the form of investing in things like boilers in schools. We may find that if we bring better boilers or better heating and air conditioning systems to our schools, it will return enough money back to the operating budget through better efficiencies to help close our deficit. The reality of it is, up until 4 weeks ago, most of us in this room had never heard of Fukushima, Japan, right? And now it has had impact on this district and our energy costs, in the times going forward. We have to run a process that will minimize the risk and manage the risk to you, the taxpayers, as to how we best utilize that money. It will take some time, but we have the people and the capabilities right here in this community to do a very good job. And I promise you, we will communicate this as openly as possible, because that's what our job as a board is. You need to understand how these decisions were made and why they were made. Lastly, we do have some assets in this community that I would also, in the district that I would like to look at in a total package. There's some existing land out by the high school right now. Is there a way that's sitting open, by the way? Is there a way to utilize that? I would include all those things into part of this discussion.
Thank you, Tracy. And Nina Fontana is next.
Thank you. It's hard to mention anything new with all the good ideas that you've been hearing. And yes, we do need to find out the parameters, how we can use that money, first of all, and after that, then again, we decide whether the board decides, we get input from committees, a vote, however it's handled. We understand how people want the money to be spent. Do we invest it? Do we pay down the debt? All those are good ideas. If we are using it in the buildings, all of which, with a few exceptions, do need some basic infrastructure work, some additions, just some cleaning up. Do we go into technology? We've done a pretty good job of getting the computers in, the smart boards. We can always use more of that, since that's the wave of the future. I mean, if you're as old as I am, you're seeing things that you never, ever, ever could have imagined in your whole life. But this is what the kids are growing up with, what they need to be able to use, to handle, and this is how they learn nowadays. We probably can't use the money for personnel for some new teachers, which is a shame, but maybe we want to throw some of it into the transportation fund so we can continue to have field trips. Those are really important for kids. Maybe we need to add some new programs and have staff development addressing the cultural and racial bias issues that we do have in the community. Improved counseling services, perhaps more social workers, things that again help our students to do better and to be better. And I'll toss this back at Tracy. He threw it at me the other day. Maybe we do want to look at air conditioning all our schools so we can look seriously at year-round school. In the best interest of the child, they don't need the whole summer off, and most of them get bored like crazy. Maybe year-round school is the way to go. Maybe this money will help move toward that.
Thank you, Nina. That is the end of the third question, answers to the third question. We're going to take a short break right now. Stretch, get a drink of water or anything like that. We're going to reassess our time, and we'll either come back with another set of questions or closing statements. Thank you.
Communication is critical at the school level, at the district level, and at the community level. School district used to have a position that they eliminated during the current economic times that helped foster that communication, which I would love to see the ability in the future when things get better to bring that same position back. Ultimately, I think there's some immediate things that can be done. Little things like moving school board meetings into the schools themselves. I've been told it's been tried in the past and attendance still remain the same, but I think when you actually reach out and go to the individual school, a more familiar ground for a lot of our parents, it'll give them the opportunity, or at least the impression of the opportunity, to be able to come out and meet a school board member, be able to hear what's going on. I also love the idea the schools have a fiber optic network connecting every one of their schools together for internet access and sharing of information. I'd love to see in the future here if we could get some of the schools to actually possibly broadcast the meetings over the internet. I know we have some amazing students out there, and their ability to grasp technology and take advantage of it and make that conversion process and put it on the net, I think would be absolutely wonderful. One, it'd be getting the kids engaged in the process itself, but it'd give parents another avenue to be able to reach out and see what's going on in the individual level. Then I also think even the small things like board packets, making sure that board packets are in electronic form and sent out onto the internet so people can understand the background information that our school board members are voting on instead of just an individual agenda. So for me, communication, definite priority. I would like to see possibly school board members here getting together and having some sort of open forum occasionally where you can just come out and ask a school board member a question. But it's important that we relay what's going on in the district down into the community to ensure that everyone understands what a wonderful asset we have in our schools and what wonderful things are going on with our students on a daily, monthly, and yearly basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Cohen. Next to answer will be James Mitchell.
Well, communication. How do we best serve our stakeholders? How do we best communicate with our stakeholders? How do we best communicate with our parents? We communicate with our parents by sending out, you use everything, every last bit of communication that we have. Snail mail, email, text messaging, phones. We have bought into a system years ago, I forget the name of it, that phones out to every parent pretty much in the district when we have an emergency going on or when we have a school closure or we have even a special event sometimes. It's a good system to have. It was one of those systems that we needed desperately, but unfortunately a lot of the parents didn't update their phone numbers, so things were going kind of haywire for a while, but now folks are getting a lot better. Another good way we communicate with our stakeholders, especially with our parents, is now through electronic registration, online registration for our district. We finally have that. It has taken 8 years of asking to get that, and a lot of people have been working on it. I give them credit where credit is due. They were working on it to make sure it was a proper system that we needed to get things done. I like the idea of a webcam. What's that word, Cohen? Webcast. What's the word? No, what's the web webcast? There we go. Thank you very much. Webcast. It was. I like that idea. I like the idea of being able to use more electronic communication when it comes to our people. I would like to move us to a paperless district, although that's nearly impossible at this point. Would like to move to a paperless board. We've tried to do that before, as well as broadcasting of school board meetings. I think that'd be one of the good things to start with. Certainly, we can work on many other things as time goes on. I think, especially though with electronic registration, I think we're going to make a gigantic leap in communication with our stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Next to answer will be Nina Fontana.
A good reason why we have gone electronic is, of course, because of the cost of doing things on paper. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of communication there. It was always said that if you wanted anything to get home to the parents, you gave it to the youngest child in the family, and they'd be sure and bring it home. Of course, when the youngest child is now in middle school and high school, that doesn't always happen. The problem with having everything electronically is that there are still many families who don't have that access to the computer, to the internet. For that reason, they're able to sign up at the schools at the beginning of the year if they want to get newsletters, for instance, in the hard copy form sent to them. That's one way that we do it. On the radio, you'll have the listings when you have a snow day. When there are meetings coming up, they'll be listed in the newspaper. I think that we do a pretty good job of communicating. It's never enough. You always miss someone, unfortunately. And as a former teacher, I know how frustrating it is when you'd have a parent call and say, well, I never heard about that. and you've tried many different forms to do it. I do think that having a liaison person between the administration and the community is a really good way to go. Again, you'd have to have it in all forms because you're going to miss someone along the line. You just want to reduce that number as much as you can.
Thank you, Nina. Next to answer will be Tracy Williams.
Well, I've believed for some time that our communication's been between the district and the communities of DeKalb, Cortland, and Malta has been one of the bigger issues. Because of that, I actually helped start a group named Citizens of District 428 with Mary Hess and Carrie Abbott Walk, which was an attempt to just hold an open forum for all community members. You were all invited to just show up and talk about what's going on at the school and how to list priorities of community members. It was great. We did 3 of those, and I encourage them to keep it going. If I should happen to win this election, I would step away from that. But it's a wonderful start. Secondly, focus groups at the school levels. I actually was visiting with the principal this morning at Brooks, and we were talking about this very thing, where each principal would be responsible to establish a focus group at that particular school. They would have 4 or 5 parents they would include. It would be open to everyone, but it would be up to them to get a good cross-section from within their own school, and they could, address the issues at that particular school and prioritize them and make a more efficient communication between the school and the board. And believe me, each one of these schools has their own sets of issues, so I'm quite certain we would see a very different set of priorities from the varying schools. I'm also open to the government access television channel. If there's a way we can work something out there, I would be all in favor of this being publicly broadcast. And I also believe that the board members need to go out once a year with an administration member and visit the service clubs, visit the League of Women Voters, maybe hold open forums here and communicate regularly and honestly what's going on in the schools. The realtors are a key one to talk to. I'm sorry I'm out of time, but I'd like to improve that communication throughout the community.
Thank you, Tracy. Next to answer will be Bernie Ng.
Email, text message, hard copy. We get a paper home every night. We get a pile of papers at the end of the week that we have to wade through. I agree with Tracy, and the question was brought up last night about broadcasting district meetings. I think that's a great idea, and I think that it ought to be looked into further. Other than that, how can we touch everybody? Not everybody has a cell phone. Not everybody has a computer. If we know that ahead of time, then we ought to be able to get to them hard copy. If their kids won't take it home, then maybe they need to be sent it in advance.
Thank you, Bernie. Next to answer will be Tom Matea.
I've had some of my children in the district for over 20 years, and I've seen a great improvement in the communication. I'm going to speak first from teacher to student. That's the most important. Skyward Access is a program that I think is just wonderful. I can log on every night to make sure my son did his homework, his progress, his grades, and we sit down and look at it together. I mean, there's no hiding anything. Thank God it wasn't available when I was in high school. I would have been in big trouble. But I think it's a great tool. Now, maybe not everyone has internet access, so I think we need to look at ways that we can utilize text messaging and so forth too, because I think most people do have cell phones. So we just got to find ways to reach people that don't take the time to do this. We really have to try to raise the bar for all of our students, and I believe it comes from very specific communication. The other thing is I think our administrators need to be more out in the public eye. Just by show of hands, does everyone know our superintendent? If you walk down the aisle, our assistant superintendents, that's good. But I think they need to be out in the community all the time. They need to be visible. They need to be part of the community. and I think we need to make sure we continue to encourage that. From a board perspective, I think we need to do our job as well of getting out to the community, having more forums, moving our meetings around, whatever we can do to be accessible to the public. We need to be very transparent, and we need to be upfront. The last thing is, I think we need to communicate to businesses, industries in our area, how they can help us. Because as budgets decrease, we need to get every asset that we have in this community to help educate our children. And I believe they're willing. I think we just need to talk to them, communicate to them, and ask them, and I think they will step up to the plate.
Thank you, Tom. Next to answer will be Tia Robinson.
I think that we can effectively improve communication and in a number of different ways. And I think what's important is that we understand that just as educators, we teach to different learning styles, we need to communicate to different learning styles or to different types of communication modalities. Everyone does not have access to the same type of resources. Therefore, communication needs to include a variety of different opportunities for parents and for the community to receive the information that we need to provide. Through our website is a way. I'm not totally for moving away from paper newsletters that should be transcribed in both English and Spanish, because everyone doesn't have electronic resources. Continuing or moving towards announcing information and providing information to parents as they attend events. Continuing to use electronic newsletters. Continuing to provide electronic updates and emails and phone blasts. And I also think that we can benefit by embracing the social media and the social networking, which is an awesome tool to engage parents as well as to engage students through Facebook, through Twitter, through Skype, as well as through text messaging. And for those group of individuals that just really want to come and just touch and see and feel and hear for themselves, developing a different model of how we conduct our school board meetings through a model called the Community of a Whole meeting, which is a very similar meeting, similar to this, that allows the community to come and really openly dialogue about what their issues and what their concerns are, as well as allow the board to really share some of what our thoughts and what some of the things and some of the avenues and the new directions that we may be thinking of that haven't come to the forefront as of yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. And next will be Holly Wallace.
It's always difficult to go last because everyone's put out all the ideas already, and I think that we've had some wonderful ideas presented here tonight. I think I can add a couple more to the mix. I think at the end of the day, our school district and all school districts actually are a customer service industry. We have many customers that we need to take care of, and anyone who's ever been involved in customer service knows that communication is the key to excellent customer service. And I think that it's something that we always could do a better job at. I agree with Tia. I think there's many different communities and many different styles of communication that need to be investigated and utilized in our district. I think that we need to utilize our website better, and I don't necessarily mean investing a lot of money in doing that. Maybe it could be a high school project. I also agree that we could move our school board meetings around to different schools and invite the population of those schools to come there and dialogue. I also think that it would be really fun and interesting to assign board members to PTAs. And those board members would not only attend PTA meetings, but attend the events that are held at that school also, and let the community in that school understand what's happening at the board level. I like town hall meetings. I think it's wonderful to be able to come in and sit with a group of people and dialogue, listen to their questions, answer their questions. I believe in transparency and communication, and I think that that's best done face-to-face. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. That is the end of the answers for question 4. We're going to move into closing statements now. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give their closing statement. Similar to the way we did the opening statements, we picked one person to start, and we will just go down the line. So, first closing statement will be by Bernie Ng.
As you might know, you might not need the 30-second card. I didn't take education very seriously until I had to start paying for it myself, and now I take it very seriously for my two boys. I can't tell you that I'm going to fix the school district. There's a team of people that are going to try to fix the school district. The only thing I have to offer is my time and my concern for this community. And I'd appreciate your vote on April 5th.
Thank you, Bernie. Nina Fontana.
I believe that we have all the tools that we need to provide the very best in education for our students. We have the best administration, the best teachers and staff, the best custodial services, the best clerical. By the way, custodians and clerical people run the schools. I don't know if you know that, but they're the real power there. The purpose of the board is to listen to the wants, the needs of all of those invested in our goal, which is the best interest of our students. When those in charge of education fail, the children fail, and we can't allow that to happen. Everyone has to come together to provide the very best for those students. We need to listen, and then we need to act using common sense as we look for the best for our children. I want to see the children succeed. I want to see all of them do the best that they can do in school and in life beyond school, because that's the best for them, that's the best for each and every one of us, and that's the best for our community. I'm Nina Fontana, and I'd love to have your vote next Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Tom Matea.
Thank you all for coming out tonight, and for those that organized this forum. It's been great to participate. I think we have an image problem in this district, and I don't think it's all justified. But the fact of it is, I think a lot of the leaders that move into our community, whether they work here or whether they work at Northern, I think they choose to take their kids to a different school. I think our district gets a bad rap. I think our teachers are as good as other districts' teachers. I think our performance, if you look at test scores, are comparable to other districts. But we do have an image problem. And I want to be part of a team that helps change that. I want to work with fellow board members, with our administrative team, with parents and teachers to make sure this is the first choice for where people want to send their kids. I want to work really hard at that. I don't pretend to be an education expert, but I have sat on numerous nonprofit boards in this community. And I think that you'll find that people that have worked for me, when you work with me, I can bring a few things to the table. One, I will listen. Two, I'll do my homework. Third, I'll faithfully attend all the meetings. And number one, I'll never forget what our priority is and what my job is there. And that is to make sure our students receive the best possible education, and you, the taxpayers, get the best value for your investment into our schools. My name is Tom Matea, and I ask for your vote on April 5th, and thank you for coming out.
Thank you, Tom. James Mitchell.
Over the years, I've been called lots of names. One of them, though, always sticks with me, a hothead. I don't think I'm a hothead. I think I'm very passionate about what I do. I'm not an educator. No, I substitute taught in the schools for many years. But I'm passionate about education. I'm passionate about what's right. I'm passionate about the kids. I don't have any children of my own, as many of you well know. But I'm passionate about the 5,700 children we have out there. Every child is my kid. If I wanted them to be educated, that's the way I'd want them to be educated, as if they were my kid. And we are meeting some of these expectations. We're not meeting some of them. We need to meet more. We need to be able to meet more. But I'm passionate. I have the background. I have the history with this district to know what's right, to know how to do things that are going to affect us for the next few years. I may not be on the next 4 years. I may be on the next 4 years. I'm still going to be somewhere around doing something for this district, because I believe in 428. I believe in Cortland, Malta, and DeKalb. I believe because I live here. I chose to live here. I came to this community to go to school. Didn't like the school. Couldn't stand NIU. Thought it was too conservative. but I like the town because it's a lot of fun here. So if I'm the right guy for the job, as I've been the right guy for the job for 8 years, vote for me. If I'm not, that's okay. I'll still be around. I'll still do things for the district, as I always do, my little things here and there. And many people know what I do for the district outside of my community service, outside of my district service. You have to have passion for this job. This is a job that you don't get paid for. But the only way you do get paid is by the satisfaction that you've done a great job. Again, my name is James Mitchell. Please vote for me on April 5th if I'm the guy for the job. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, James. Tia Robinson.
Thank you. When I ran for the school board 8 years ago, I ran with a passion as a single parent, wanting to work to improve our school district. Wanting to work because I honestly believed that parents sent the schools their best child that they had, and that it was the responsibility of the school to make sure that that child was receiving the best resources and the best academic programs available to them. I ran for seeking new opportunities to increase student achievement, to close the achievement gap, improving fiscal responsibility, improving diversity programs and initiatives, looking at more opportunities to provide professional development to teachers, and increasing parental involvement. I've made a difference over the last 8 years in many of these areas. I've faced many challenges, and I've accepted many challenges from a consistent lens that allowed me to look at various components of research, study best practices, to ensure that I was making data-driven decisions. With that said, I come before you once again this evening, asking humbly for the opportunity to continue serving you, the taxpayer, the parents, the community, and the children of District 428. My name is Tia Robinson, and I humbly ask for your vote on April the 5th.
Thank you, Tia. Holly Wallace.
All my life, I've liked to ask questions. I really like questions. I like to know who, what, why, and how. And when faced with making a decision at the school board table, I will always ask questions. Why are we doing this? How does this affect children and staff? What will be the end result, and how will we measure it? How will it affect the future of the district? Does this help teaching and learning? I ask questions because I want to have ownership of the decisions I make. I believe by truly understanding the issues, I can make the most informed decision. I also feel it's very important to have a full understanding, because when many of you contact me or see me in the store and stop me to ask why, I need to be able to explain the how, what, when, and where of the issue that you're asking about. I also bring to the table a proven record of commitment, consistent meeting attendance, and enthusiasm, as well as a solid knowledge of school finance and school law. You have a very hard decision in front of you. We are very lucky to have an outstanding group of candidates to choose from. And I hope that when you ask yourself the question of who I should vote for, I hope your answer will be Holly Wallace on April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Tracy Williams.
Well, this has been quite a process. This is the first time I've run for office, and I've found it to be very enlightening, challenging, and at the very least, I've made some new friends up here. So I'm thrilled that we're almost to the election day, but it has been a good process and a good thing to be part of. I ask for your vote on April 5th so that I can bring to the district the experience I've gained over the last 30 years in various forms of business. When you look at the challenges we have in front of us today, it's going to take all kinds of very diligent people to make this work, and to make it work like it has, and to maybe make it better. I want to really focus on improving the community relations and the communications within the community, because as times get tougher, everybody has to be involved, and they have to know what they're getting for their tax dollars. They have to know how those dollars are being spent, and they have to feel comfortable that this board and this administration has done all it can to maximize the learning experience for their children. I also want to start immediately on improving the perception of this district. Too many times I've heard people say, if I could move to Sycamore, I would. If I could sell my house, I would leave. Again, we can start to work on that immediately. Some of that is justified, but not all of it. And I now am at a point in my life where I have the time, the knowledge, and the desire to contribute to this community and this school district. I ask for your support on April 5th, and I pledge to you I will do all I can to live up to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Cohen Barnes.
Like everyone else, I appreciate your time tonight, and I appreciate the time of those who put on this event. Isn't it wonderful? 11 people running for 4 slots for school board. I think it's a reflection of our community. I think it's a reflection of what's going on in our community when so many people want to step up and simply serve. So I look at it from the standpoint that it's a win-win. Whether I get elected or not, 4 people are going to be voted by everyone in this room and everyone in our community, and that will be the right choice. So it's an exciting to be a part of this process, and it's exciting to be in front of you guys tonight. I am committed. When I get involved in something, I'm all in. From chairman of the board to the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce, I was an Eagle Scout, veteran. I've run marathons. I understand what it's like when you're passionate about something and dedicate yourself to it, you achieve, and you can achieve great things. I'm excited about the direction this community is taking. When you look at what's gone on downtown here, I remember it when I was a kid, and I look at it the way it is now, and it's so impressive. It's a wonderful place in this community. It's the heart of our community, and I think it's fantastic that the citizens stepped up and recognized it as the heart of our community and did something about it and improved it. We have a new hospital, new cancer center. We have a new high school, new elementary school. There's so many wonderful things happening in this community. It's an exciting process to be a part of. It's exciting to step up and want to run for school board like 11 other people. I'm looking forward to the challenge, and I hope all of you in this room come out Tuesday, April 5th, and vote for your school board members and your aldermen and everyone else on the ballot. But I also hope that you remember my name, Cohen Barnes, and I can get your vote on April 5th. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Cohen. On behalf of the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce, the Egyptian Theater, WLBK, and the Daily Chronicle, I'd like to thank our candidates for being here tonight, for taking the time out to come and share your viewpoints and why you want to be running for this board. As pointed out, I think we're a pretty lucky community to have 11 people running for 4 seats. It shows a lot of interest and passion in our school district. I'd also like to thank our audience, both here at the Egyptian Theater and those listening at WLBK, for taking time out to educate yourselves on this issue. If you haven't already, through the various early voting options, please go vote on April 5th. Thank you and have a good evening.